John Clay now trying for the victory. McLaughlin through on the inside first. That first rider's a straggler, looks over his shoulder. So there is a little bit of confusion here because that's a straggler. This is the race for the line and McLaughlin's going to get it. Joey McLaughlin repeats history on the line. He did it a year ago. On that occasion, he went on to win the Kelloggs Tour. I wonder what he's thinking now. And here he is alongside me now. Congratulations, Joey. The finish line busy this morning, but for a different reason. We're off to Liverpool. You must be very happy that the form is back.
Definitely, Phil. I was pleased yesterday, like you say, to come through underneath of Malcolm Elliott.
Now, we're two Liverpudlians, both going home today, but I think your journey's a little bit more important than mine. Do you think you can go home and win the yellow jersey?
I hope so, definitely for the people in Liverpool, because, as you know, Phil, there's going to be a lot of people going to be screaming and shouting today.
We don't get many big-time race finishes in Liverpool, do we?
That's right, not at all, so let's make today a big special occasion.
I'm looking forward to it, Joey. Now, look, we're not going to delay you too long because I know that all the preparations, a little bit of massage and the food to go in the back pocket. Off you go. Best of luck. I'll be shouting for you. I promise not to be too biased.
Happy birthday.
Oh, crikey. He wasn't supposed to know that. Anyway, Joey McLaughlin then really has a lot on his mind today as he goes off to Liverpool, day 3 of the Kelloggs Tour of Britain. And just to remind you, after the first 2 days that we've had already at Newcastle and at York, and of course yesterday here in Manchester, Malcolm Elliott is setting himself up to be the man to beat. A look then at the overall situation. Malcolm Elliott on top of the pile, leading by 20 seconds from Joey McLaughlin. In third place, Elliott's teammate Sean Yates. Fourth, the world champion Stephen Roach, and fifth, Thomas Wegmuller, Sean Kelly's teammate from the Cass team. A little bit further down the list, you've got Ronan Pensek in 7th slot, and Kelly was the big improver yesterday. He moved up from 10th to 9th overall. That's the overall situation then, and as you can see, a few seconds only separates the leaders. It can all change today. Now, we've noticed a little bit of rivalry developing since this race began in Newcastle between two men, Chris Lillywhite of the Rally Banana team and Mauro Gianetti, the Swiss rider, who's leading the King of the Mountains competition. He rides for La Wyman's Swiss team. Now, it all started on the first day on the climb as they came up towards Castleton, and whatever happened out of sight of our cameras, but as they crossed the line, Chris Lillywhite made a gesture to Gianetti as he went over the finish. Now, yesterday, we noticed it happening again, and this time, so too did the judges, because on the climb of the Dog and Gun, it was a close sprint for second place, with Chris Lillywhite being, it looked to me, closed down on by Gianetti, but the judges felt that Gianetti was the man impeded, and they reversed the decision. Lillywhite did not get second place behind Dave Mann here. He was, in fact, relegated to third.
I've been challenging him for the King of the Mountains, and as I've been coming past him, he's been trying to switch me into the gutter. So I've just been defending myself and just trying to fend him off. But the commissaires didn't see it that way and reversed the placings on the climb yesterday.
So that rivalry will go on, and we'll keep an eye on it as we go out on the road today. One man already out on the road very early this morning, Paul McDowell. He's out on the course to give us now the complete rundown on what faces the riders today on the road to Liverpool.
Unfortunately, a lot of low clouds spoiling what is one of the most scenic routes from Manchester to Liverpool on this third stage. I'm at the top of the Trough of Bowland. If you've never heard of it or been here, it is in fact one of Lancashire's most famous beauty spots. It's also very well known to a lot of the English riders. There are many races held here. It takes them 1,500 feet above sea level. It's a Category 2 climb. And it's here too that yesterday's stage winner, Joey McLaughlin, has put in many hours of practice. Well, will that familiarity aid him in his quest to take the yellow jersey from Malcolm Elliott? I'll hand you back now to another Liverpool lad, Phil Liggett, who's going to tell us now which millennium he's in.
No, I'm not, Paul, and a year older than last year will have to suffice. Well, the riders then lining up here in Albert Square in Manchester, and a lot of riders in fact are local to this area because the northwest of England has turned out some marvellous racing cyclists over the years. Many national champions and indeed world champions such as Norman Shiel, who came from Liverpool. Here we are then on the way, and this is Mark Walsham, the British circuit race champion in the Percy Bilton team. Steve Jones in the blue sleeves on the far side there, chatting with the two Fager boys, Malcolm Elliott in yellow, of course, Sean Yates, Steve Sefton on the left. Now, what's happening at the back of the race? This, in fact, is Dave Mann, our breakaway hero yesterday. Seems to be making a wheel adjustment and getting back in the race. And Joey McLaughlin too, dropping back to his team car, driven by team manager Roger Leger, and wow, he's gone. Well, all that's behind the race during the neutralised section, because the flag they're denoting now that the race is starting, and the race now is officially underway. Or is it? It looks as though it's still time for a phone call for Stephen Roach here, the world champion, keeping an eye on things from the back. What would he have done in the days without cellular phones? So here we are now, coming into Rochdale here, the site of the first TV time sprint, and this is Andy Johnson on the attack for the Air Marshal team, and it's good to see this young team having a go. They don't seem to be at all afraid of the competition this year in the race. Johnson then clear. This, I think, the most trickiest of all the sprints so far in the TV time sprint. It goes through a number of chicanes, around a couple of roundabouts as it crosses right through the centre of Rochdale. Well, Johnson has the lead at the moment, but the field are closing up rapidly on him. Remember, the leader of this competition is Nick Barnes. He wears the white jersey. That looks like Barnes trying to move in on the action now in third place. And Nick Barnes going here on the left of the picture. It's a difficult sprint, this one, but he gets it. Good for Nick Barnes, maximum points. Mark Walsham second, and Alan Percy, a new professional of just a few days, in third place. Well, all the way we've been heading out here towards the Lancashire moors, and the low clouds have been coming down and down, and it could be that very soon we're going to be in to the first of the wet stages of this year's Kelloggs Tour. Caping up, Paul, for Stephen Roach.
Well, this is a very dangerous time in most of the races, because a lot of the teams send riders back to the team cars to pick up these racing capes, and a lot of riders at the back will struggle to get back onto the climb, because they've been back into the team cars getting racing capes for the team leaders. You can see one of the two of the riders here struggling.
Well, they've chosen a bad time, because we're on what is quite a long climb here out of Bacup. This is the first of the two climbs today. It's only a third category. I think the judges a little bit hard here, because this is quite a difficult climb. And we've got Lillywhite up here in second place, who's trying to do well on the climbs. Remember his rivalry with Gianetti. That is Gianetti just over the back in the blue hat. You can spot him. He's riding on the shoulder of Chris Lillywhite. Stephen Hodge here is coming to the front too for the Cass Mavic team, because Sean Kelly is also challenging in this mountains competition. And if you can see the two yellow riders in the background there, Sean Kelly is the one on the left, and he's waiting to see sight of the finish of the climb before he makes a move.
As we come up to the, you can see Stephen Hodge there, who's actually leading his own sprint out with, looks like Frederick Vichot is leading out Gianetti before. This is quite a reasonable tactic to keep the speed high, so that the two riders going for the, just back there, it looks as if Sean Yates just nearly clipped a car. They're leading the sprint out, so that the riders going for the sprint don't have to make too long an effort into the wind.
So the riders on the wet roads, remember, and they're a little bit greasy because we haven't had too much rain. But now the sprint beginning to be wound up here by Stephen Hodge in the centre of the picture. Lillywhite on the left trying to get round Hodge. Hodge has opened the running for the line then. Remember, Gianetti isn't too far behind in the white jersey there. But we've got Hodge here on the left of the corner. And it looks as though we've also got on the behind him now Lillywhite, Gianetti. These three are going clear. Hodge is making a break for it. Good positioning here by Lillywhite. Kelly sprung onto the scene there from nowhere. 100 metres to go now. Kelly in fourth place. They've got Gianetti boxed on the inside as Lillywhite opens the sprint. Lillywhite checks out the opposition. He sees Kelly. Good enough though. Lillywhite gets it. Kelly is second, and the judges have awarded Gianetti the third place. So good scoring then by Lillywhite, and the two rivals neck and neck for that one. Well, the very slippery descent here. The riders taking no chances. This is Darrell Webster on the front, a rider who picked up no less than 40 British medals in championships before he turned professional this year, and yet another rider out of action until now because of injury. Well, on the long descent here, the riders keeping it in check at around 45 miles an hour, which for this sort of descent is not terribly quickly. So time for Roach to make another phone call, this time with his cape on. So whatever the subject was earlier, this is the return coming up now. Well, they never cease to amaze me, these bike riders, but they've chosen to neutralise the race a little bit here. The road's drying out again. The world champion shows us off again, his rainbow jersey. And in fact, Alan Gornall here now who had been allowed a lead earlier on to go and visit friends in Clitheroe, and he's now coming back to the main field. And this is Stephen Roach here, absolutely sprinting out of the pack, it appears, to speak with Gornall. And I've got a feeling that Roach here is not at all amused at the time that Alan Gornall was spent out front. Well, the riders all back together again, and the pack do have this rule amongst themselves that they let riders go out and meet friends, and then they must come back, and it looks to me as though they weren't too bothered earlier on, but they didn't like what happened afterwards. Now we're on to the Trough of Bowland here, heading out now into the wilds of Lancashire. Malcolm Elliott looking a little bit wet and bedraggled for the moment in that yellow jersey, and in fact, Paul, all of the riders are looking to me as though they've not enjoyed this early rain.
Well, it's hardens up the muscles quite a lot, the rain, and you notice that now that they're getting to the climb, all the riders, although it's still very damp, they're taking off the raincoats so they can breathe a lot better, because you find when you race in these raincoats, it tends to overheat you quite a lot, and when you get to the strategic point, they all start ripping off the raincoats again.
Well, there's plenty of action going on at the front now as the field is beginning to be strung out a little bit. One or two news is reaching us in retirements today, I'm afraid. Pascal Richard, the world cyclocross champion who crashed out of the Tour de France, has abandoned this morning already. And also Glenn Coltman has left us, so two riders out of the race today. And now you can see the field here is now well strung out as they start to come along the main moorland roads. And one or two shouts there from the crowd as we look now through the rain on our camera lens. An attack by a rider there in a white jersey. That'll be La Wyman Suisse colours going clear. The pack are not reacting at all. They've seen him go, there's no doubt about that, because you've got that arrowhead on the front of the pack, but he's going clear. And this looks to me as though it's Serge Demier, the Swiss member of the new team that's formed this year, and they're having a tremendously successful season. They're led by Steve Bauer, the Canadian, normally, and there's confirmation of that. Demier it is. And what about him, Paul? A strong man indeed.
Well, Demier is a very renowned rider for this kind of attack. He's actually been a professional since 1977. He won a stage in the Tour de France in 1983 in a lone effort like this. And he also won a time trial in around about 1983 as well with his teammate Daniel Gissiger. So this solitary effort, he's quite used to it.
Well, let's see what the bunch think of this. The gap is opening and the field are looking to me as though they're beginning to chase a little bit. It's a long, long way to go, of course, as we go down towards Dunsop Bridge and on the Trough of Bowland. And once on that climb, who knows what could happen. Demier, remember, is a long break specialist, but he's facing now 77 miles on his own. That is rather an awesome prospect. On the climb now of the Trough of Bowland, a couple of chasing riders trying to get clear down there of the field and take up the chase as they now enter the trough itself. This climb, by the way, is very narrow. The crowds reported on the summit to be quite large.
Well, there you can see the BH rider who was chasing, trying to get across to Serge Demier, followed by the policeman of the Wyman team to prevent him getting across. Demier's attacked at a very strategic point here. It's very narrow roads, and if he can get a lead of about 20-25 seconds, what will be advantageous to him is the fact that it's a question of out of sight, out of mind, but it's very hard to get that initial 25 seconds.
Well, he's riding very, very well indeed. I must tell a little story while we're looking here at Demier on the climb of the Trough of Bowland, because when Sean Kelly went up this hill at 18 years of age in the milk race a few years ago now, because he's 32, he was lying in third place overall in the event when his bike collapsed and he finished many, many minutes behind when he was certain to have achieved third place in that event at 18. And I would have thought that Sean Kelly would have been demoralised beyond belief. He certainly wasn't, and of course, as we all now know, he's gone on to be the #1 rider in the world. This then, after that little anecdote, is the back of the field today in the second Kelloggs Tour of Britain, and Kelly is in that big bunch somewhere, and this is the rider doing the damage out front. The climb then of the Trough of Bowland, and Serge Demier almost looked to me as though he had a little sneeze then, probably caught a chill already after the rain falling an hour or so ago. Not too bad the weather here, in fact now it's beginning to warm up a bit and the cloud lifting, but a lot of descending to go. This is the last climb of the day. It's not been a difficult stage for climbing. This is the high spot, some 1,500 feet, and it's going to be a difficult day for the riders to judge. Let me tell you straight away that this rider is over 17 minutes behind on the overall classification. He lies in 47th place, and this could be the reason why the men in the bunch are not paying too much attention to him at the moment, at least. Difficult race for them to judge, I think, Paul, but of course Sean Kelly, Stephen Roach, they're the riders who are going to watch each other at the moment, aren't they?
Well, Serge Demier is over 17 minutes behind on the overall classification, and as we look up the climb up between the two hills there, that's what's facing Serge Demier at the moment. But to come back to what I was saying, the teams really who have to chase are going to be Fagor and Cass. They'll try and get the chase organised, but for the moment this man isn't dangerous to them overall, so when they get over the top of the climb without disorganising the team, they'll start to arrange the chase on the descent down the valley roads, but for the moment they're giving him a little bit of a leeway.
One of the Spanish riders here, Merguialdi, I think it is having a little respite at the back of the race. The Spanish team has not had a great tour already. They've lost a rider, they've struggled a little bit, so they've not have really taken part in this race at all. Well, Demier seems to be enjoying himself at least. He's been twice the champion of Switzerland, once as an amateur, once as a professional. We go back to 1983 when he picked up the professional title. He's looked over the back there to see where the group is. Well, he's seeing the whole pack, in fact, because the two chasers we saw have gone back into the main group. There is no one in between. The red jersey on the right at the front there is Rob Holden, this amazing 20-year-old, the youngest man in the race, who's holding on to that leader's red jersey as this race unwinds. And there's only a few more days to go down to the city of Westminster. Will be very, very fine indeed for Holden if he can survive what is still a lot of racing to come. The amazing thing about this race here, as we watch the third day on the Trough of Bowland, is that only a few seconds separate a lot of riders. In fact, the first 17 riders overall are only separated by 58 seconds. So really, this race could turn upside down almost at a minute's notice. There they are. You can get a little bit of the aspect of the gradient of the Trough of Bowland from my helicopter here as it follows them up the hill. The yellow jersey riding not too far away from the front. The crowd loving every minute of this. There is a massive crowd here. This race catching on so quickly, and the crowd seems to be turning out at the most remote points of the course all day long. Just look at them now, enjoying the sight of the Swiss rider Serge Demier go up the mountain, and look at that cutting through the trough. Wonderful sight indeed. And we get a lot of letters coming into us about the beauty that the race takes, the course it takes, and it really does show everybody Britain at its very best. I'm not sure, in fact, whether Demier appreciates it quite as much as we do. Towards the summit then now for Serge, the lead over half a minute. We're hearing that information over the main pack, so he's labouring, in fact, Paul, to get the gap as he comes inside 200 metres to go.
Well, as he's coming just up to the top here, all Demier is probably thinking about is when are the service cars going to come up behind me so that I know what my time gap is, because at the moment, until he's got the team cars behind him, he probably thinks that the gap is below 30 seconds, but he's still waiting for some kind of confirmation. When he gets down on the descent, then he can start trying to build up his lead as he just comes over the top.
Well, they must have heard you, Paul, because there's the time gap come up now, 39 seconds. So the narrow roads are probably the reason that the team cars haven't joined him, because they can't get through the mass of riders here at the moment. This is the chasing group coming up now, and the green jersey of Joey McLaughlin was quite evident there, and so too was the yellow jersey of Malcolm Elliott. This, of course, the last mountain climb today, so we'd expect to see Gianetti in the action sooner or later. And the rider number 50 here, who's in all sorts of trouble, is Paul Brown at the back of the race. But there's plenty of time to rejoin the main pack, because once over the top, there's quite a long descent. And then, of course, we're on the flat roads heading down towards the Merseyside coastline. And this is now Demier on the way down, heading towards the base, while we're looking at Stephen Roach here leading the group up towards the top. And I think that's Sean Kelly also having a go, watching everybody else go with him. But Kelly also going over the top there. He will get second place. And it looks as though Gianetti didn't score well then either. So if we can have a look now at the situation on the King of the Mountains, there it is. Demier wins 10 points. Kelly is second, Roach third, Gianetti fourth. So Sean Kelly had a great day in the mountains today. He's closed the gap in the King of the Mountains overall on Gianetti, who is still in that polka dot jersey. So on the way down the mountain now for Serge Demier. And as the rest of the field still come over the top of the Trough of Bowland, the flatlands to come. Join us after the break.
Welcome back to the Tour of Britain. We're now 65 miles into this 117-mile third stage leading into Liverpool. And we're at the feeding station. You've probably seen before in our coverage of how the riders come along here, pick up their bags, take the food out of the bag and then throw the bag away. They all started this morning with food in their back pockets. By now they've run out, so this is where they're going to get the food to give them the energy to get them down into Liverpool. Now basically what's in this bag, bits of cake, the odd chocolate bar, it's all high in sugar content, designed to react slowly on their body to give them that energy to get them down past 2 sprints and into the city of Liverpool. So now let's go back to Phil Liggett, who's already lunched and fish and chips with a bit of birthday cake as well.
Thank you, Paul, and I hasten to add, I was on the move as well. Well, we're back with the leader here now. Let's remind you, he broke away as we approach the climb of the Trough of Bowland, and now he's working to try and bring back some of the time he's lost over the last 2 days, because he started this morning over 17 minutes behind the race leader, Malcolm Elliott. And look at this. From our helicopter, we're panning back down the course. The cars in the distance there indicate the location of the main field. I don't actually see the riders. There they are, coming out of the trees, so they're just ahead of all the cars. And the gap confirmed at 3 minutes 15 seconds. So I suspect, Paul, that sort of a gap, he must be now approaching a mile in the lead.
Well, yeah, when he's gone away down the descent, Demier's had a better chance to take the corners, which are still very damp from the rain this morning. He's got a better line around the corners than this bunch, who have probably taken it a little bit more careful, because it's very dangerous on these descents, and they've let him go somewhat down the descent.
When he broke away, Paul, would he have been thinking of staying away to the finish, or just to try and win the climb over the trough?
Well, I think the kind of attack that he's launched here is really to try and get away and win the stage, because there's a lot of team tactics involved at the moment. The Fagor team are leading with third-placed overall Sean Yates. Kelly's up there as well, so there's a bit of poker going on between these two teams, deciding who's going to chase, and Demier has taken advantage of this, waiting to see who'll chase, and maybe nobody will.
Well, at the moment, that does seem to be the answer, because nobody is attacking at all. The whole peloton is riding along in a tight group there, which indicates no reaction at all. We're going back along the rather bleak moorland road here today, and we're going up and up and up, and in the far distance, still no sign of Serge Demier as they roll away over the fells here of Lancashire. The countryside which is so bleak in the winter and so beautiful on the nice days in the summer. And down there, way down there, the lone figure of Serge Demier, riding along British roads for a change for him. He missed the Tour de France this year, and look at this now, the gap has gone up over 5.5 minutes. So another 12 minutes on that total, only another 12 minutes, and Demier will have the yellow jersey on his shoulders. Maybe that's what he's looking for.
Well, Phil, when Demier gets to the feed here, he's got another thing to his advantage, the fact that as he goes through, he'll collect his bag, he'll put all the food into his back pocket, but behind, when the peloton comes through, it's normally absolute chaos. All the riders switching around, trying to find their bags, looking for their masseurs to get their bags, missing their bags, switching left and right to find, especially in this country at the moment, because the foreigners are feeding on the right-hand side of the road and the British riders are taking food on the left-hand side of the road. So it is actually sometimes total chaos for the riders.
Well, there we are, and Demier, by the way, only speaks French, and he's just shouted across the French masseur, it was, I think, of the Z Peugeot team, and it might well have been for a time check over the pack. Now, out of the bag comes the food that's been so carefully wrapped during the evening and early morning by the mechanics and masseurs, all in the back pockets. This is the main field now, led by Bernard Richard, a teammate, the 5th member of the Fagor team, and the one we haven't seen too much of during the attacking riding by that team. Here's the main field then into the field. World champion Roach snatches the food for the day, so too Robert Miller, and there goes I think it was Bernard Richard also taking his bag. Malcolm Elliott in yellow, Sean Yates, all the men, and it looks like a problem. You heard Paul Schoen mentioning the trouble at the feeding stations generally. Well, we've got one here, because in fact little Stephen Jockin here has fallen off at the back of the group, and it looks to me as though the British champion in a little bit of pain there. Roach now riding at the front, no-handed, unpacking the food bag. And again, Paul, still no sign at all of a reaction.
Well, the riders obviously realised Demier's are nowhere overall because they'd have been informed by their team managers, and there's no time yet as Roach is coming up to offer he's offering a Mars bar to the cameraman. He's obviously got a lot of spare food today.
He's in high spirits too. He's made a couple of phone calls. That's probably ruined the race budget for the year. And now we're back with the leader here, talking to the race organiser, Alan Rushton. And one has to say what a marvellous job he does too with his team of helpers. This is an enormous lead he's built up now. It's up to 10 minutes. And Alan Rushton has probably just told that fact to Serge Demier. And by the way, when they tell the leader, they make a point too of informing the bunch behind. There's no question of cheating amongst the organisation. And there is the small computer you saw there briefly on the forks of the leader. That is calibrated to the size of the wheel, and it doesn't just tell the distance covered. You can work all sorts of things out on it. Heading off now towards Southport, and Serge Demier, there's Southport down below. And look at this now. We've jumped to 14.5 minutes, Paul. 3 more minutes, and we've got a new leader on the road. We're now working our way through the streets of Southport, and this is the biggest crowd of the race since we left Newcastle upon Tyne on Tuesday. Absolutely enormous here. We're heading for the TV time sprint, and in fact, obviously, the leading points there will go. Around the roundabout way below is the main field, and they're being led here by Steve Jones for the sprint. John Clay now taking up the running, and the white jersey of the sprint leader, Barnes, back in the action here, looking for second place, but Mark Walsham going like a train in the yellow jersey. Walsham on the outside, and it looks like it's possibly Keith Reynolds here too, but Walsham gets it. And so it's Demier, Walsham. It was Alan Percy, the new professional in the MLMBK colours, who gets the third spot on the line there. So the lead building all the time for Serge Demier, the manager alongside him, and look what he's telling him here. 15 minutes 45 seconds. Paul, is it possible that Demier is going to pull the surprise of the Tour so far, and because they're just beginning here to show signs of reaction, is he going to stay away? Is he going to get the yellow jersey?
Well, they've given him his leeway now, and as you can see, the Fagor team moving to the front. They will start to organise, and possibly with a little bit of help from the Cass team, they'll start to chase, because he's been away for a long time. This rider can gain something like 15 minutes, but the bunch can close down on that incredibly fast over the last hour, hour and a half.
Well, there's Sean Kelly, the anxious face of Kelly. Elliott in the bright yellow jersey. Now, the Fagor team has been called to the front, and Robert Miller here doing the work. The Bernard Richard, then Sean Yates, then Stephen Roach. So 4 of the 5 Fagor team now beginning to chase the breakaway.
Well, this again is a tactical move. They're not working here to win the race. What they're doing now is to chase down Serge Demier to limit his time gap, as they're taking it in turns to move into the wind. Sean Yates coming through here is doing his turn into the wind to take this speed up to speeds around 35 miles an hour.
And the face of Stephen Roach there. I wonder if he'd like to make a phone call now or give me a Mars bar. I think the answer will probably be a pleasant no. We're back with the leader here then. Number 35, Serge Demier. The longest break of the Tour of Britain this week, that is for sure now. And his lead, though, is beginning to tumble. 11.9. We've turned, by the way, into a vicious headwind since we left Southport, and it looks as though that headwind is taking its toll. A split here now in the front group. We're on the outskirts of Liverpool, and this is Keith Reynolds, who's openly attacking for the ML team. Roach is come up to him. That's a little bit of a surprise, but Roach is looking for a good ride here, and it looks like Mike Doyle from nearby Chester, just over the Mersey there, is also looking for a little bit of local glory. Mike Doyle then taking up the pacemaking. Roach in second place and Reynolds in third place. Stephen Roach, by the way, a few seconds lead here could give him the yellow jersey off his teammate Malcolm Elliott, because he started the day in 4th place.
I think the reason Roach is working here is to try and take a little bit of pressure off his team and make Cass chase.
So now we've got Serge Demier approaching the circuit. In the distance there, the tower of the Liver building with the famous Liver bird on top of it. This is the city of Liverpool, and it's a Swiss rider, Serge Demier, who's bringing the whole of the Tour of Britain into the city. Tremendous race then. Can Demier hang on to this stage of the Tour of Britain? Join us again after the break.
Welcome back to the city of Liverpool for the final part of the third stage of the Tour of Britain. A stage in which we've seen Sean Kelly do very well indeed in those 2 climbs, and so proving a real threat to Gianetti for that title King of the Mountains. A stage 2 in which we've seen Serge Demier take that great lead, building up to 15 minutes at one point. But of course, much of the focus of interest from the big crowd here in Liverpool is on one rider in particular. That's local lad Joey McLaughlin. Now, what awaits Joey and the rest of the riders here in the city is a very difficult circuit indeed. It looks a bit like a figure of 8, a good straight on that elongated section at the bottom, but there at the top there are 4 or 5 very tight corners indeed. 4 circuits in all. We'll hand you back now to Phil Liggett.
Thank you, Paul. And now all that remains for Serge Demier is the quick sprint around the city of Liverpool. He's coming here onto the circuit with a lead of just about 8 minutes. That's all that's left now. At one stage, we were thinking of Serge as the new leader of the Kelloggs Tour. Now he's hanging on and hoping for just the victory at the finish. This undoubtedly the biggest crowd of the Tour so far. The streets of the city of Liverpool absolutely packed to capacity as Serge Demier of Switzerland now starts his final 4 laps of the city centre, and the whole field are on the outskirts themselves now of the circuit. There you can see the crowd as Serge Demier comes through. His lead just 8 minutes as he comes along William Brown Street, past the galleries, swinging left at the top. And this, Paul, has been a big gamble for Serge. Here we have the chasing group that broke away on the outskirts with the whole field there. Just behind Stephen Roach in white, Mike Doyle at the back. Masked by the other 2 is Keith Reynolds. Doyle here from Chester. And now we're back with the leading rider on his circuits now. Something like 4 laps to go.
Well, it's still a long way to go for Demier, because in something like the last 10 miles, a rider on his own can ride at 25, 26 miles an hour and lose something like 5 or 6 minutes. As we go back to Stephen Roach here, leading the chase with Mike Doyle and Keith Reynolds sitting in there.
Well, this is a good move by Roach, because he may well steal the seconds that could suddenly switch the yellow jersey from his teammate Elliott to his. And what a comeback that would be for Stephen Roach. He couldn't really have expected to be the race leader, surely, of this race so soon into his rehabilitation. There's the leader, Serge Demier now. There's one more TV time sprint to come today. And of course, there is a couple of seconds bonus there for the winner, 3 seconds in fact. And Demier really won't need those few seconds now, because he was looking originally for 17 minutes. There he is, the crowd strain over the barriers there, Paul. He'll take at least the points in the TV time sprint, but now he's thinking more of hanging on, I think, for victory.
Yes, because he'll still be having the time checks coming from his team manager, and this little climb up here by St George's is extremely difficult after 117 miles, and all Demier is thinking about now is keeping his speed up around 24, 25 miles an hour, maybe glancing at his mileometer every now and again to try and keep that speed up, but knowing that the bunch will be boring down behind him. But the bunch is not quite come down on Stephen Roach at the moment, who's chasing Demier quite incredibly.
So this is Demier, I'm sorry, this is Stephen Roach here leading the chase, and followed by Keith Reynolds and Mike Doyle. Roach seems to be the man wanting to do most of the work here. This is the sprint for 2nd, 3rd and 4th places in the TV times. Roach wants this because he wants the 2 seconds time bonus on the line. Roach has the lead at the moment. This, by the way, is quite a nasty little climb up to the finish line. You get some impression of it there. Roach takes the 2 seconds, so that could be crucial now. There's the confirmation. Demier gets 5 points, Roach and Reynolds, but of course it's the time bonus that Stephen Roach wanted, because now if he can hold off the pack here, led by Adrian Timmis and Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, the riders causing concern because Joey McLaughlin's second place is also in danger overall. McLaughlin on the left of our picture in that green jersey. That looks like the Pocket Rocket having a go, the rider that crashed at the feeding station, Steve Jockin now. He also comes from the Isle of Man, which is just 3 hours across the water by boat here from the city of Liverpool. And now we're back with the 3 leaders on the back of the circuit. And Roach anxious now, not getting enough work rate, it seems, out of the other 2 riders. Roach is having to do a lot of the work himself.
It's amazing to notice how Stephen is riding after his break as well. 9 months out without very much competition. All the riders in the bunch at the moment are absolutely incredulized at the speed that he's can come back. He's got that pedalling back, and if you look here, he's really pedaling as he was doing in the big days when he won the Tour de France and when he won the World Championships, but really grimacing now. This is a time when he's thinking about taking the yellow jersey from the shoulders of his teammate, but it's a help to his teammate Malcolm Elliott because it's forcing the other teams to chase.
And in fact, speaking to him in French, there's the assistant race chief referee, Jerry McDade, because Demier hasn't a clue what is being said in English, and he's told him, in fact, that this chasing group is underway as well. Mike Doyle here, and Keith Reynolds and Roach. Now they're overtaking Demier here. Demier came onto this circuit. Let me explain straight away. Demier came onto this circuit 1 lap ahead. They've now pulled back the time because Demier on the circuit is losing approximately 2 minutes a lap to the chasing groups. There's the main bunch. Now 8 minutes was the advantage of Demier. That is already down now to 5 minutes, but I think it's unlikely, Paul, that they'll actually go a lap up on and bring him back.
Well, it's a long way around this circuit. It's a very, very hard circuit. Demier's just got to keep his speed up around about 25, 26 miles an hour. Although Roach's group here doing 28, 29 miles an hour, the chasing group in the bunch led by the Z Peugeot team may very well come back to this group, because you can see now Mike Doyle from the PMS team is sitting on a little bit and not contributing to the breakaway group.
Well, Roach certainly wants some help here. There was a moment on the previous lap when he got the seconds, in fact, were required for the leader's yellow jersey. But at the bell here now, you can see that the great chasing by Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle, the rider who finished second on the mountain climb to Luzardiden in the Tour de France, and finished up there just ahead of the winner of the Tour, Pedro Delgado. Now he's doing his workhorse speed chase here, and it's all paid off, because as Serge Demier comes up to the finishing line here, no doubt the most deserving winner of the stage so far. A breakaway of 77 miles for the Swiss rider. The former champion of Switzerland from Geneva is now a winner of the Kelloggs Tour here in the city of Liverpool. But this is the race at the back amongst the leaders themselves, and the hard chasing by the Z Peugeot boys has done the trick, because they've brought back Stephen Roach. But Demier isn't worried, and why should he be? Because for him the day is already over. Now the 3 riders, Paul, still away, but the gap closing rapidly.
Well, they've done the ideal thing here as well. If you notice, the break came back together very much down the descent, but these riders decided we don't want to give up. We've been away for a spare time now, and Mike Doyle now thinking about possibly getting second place on the stage. He's decided to try and work a little bit, as Keith Reynolds from the ML team is coming through, working a little bit. Roach trying to come through there as well.
Well, Harry Reynolds, by the way, the father of Keith, was a rider in the Tour de France almost 30 years ago. And now Keith's going to show his dad what he can do. There he is on the front of the race. He's the man on form for the ML MBK's team. And he made the attack, by the way, that Roach was very quick to spot on the outskirts of Liverpool. And so too is Mike Doyle, who knows these roads like the back of his hand, because he comes from Chester. There's Mike coming through on the inside, working well. Now Roach assessing the attack here now, and he seems to be deciding that it's not going to work, because he's no longer participating in the breakaway. May well be deciding on seeing what he can do in the sprint finish. There's the field, Paul, and now quite clearly they're out to pick him up.
Well, they're really stringing out there, and you could just see Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle suffering at the back, which is a sign of how fast this race really is. Roach, now having decided this break is not going to succeed, has decided not to contribute anymore, and he'll probably notice very soon the bunch will come back and the junction will be made.
Absolutely right, Paul, and it has been too. So as we come to the finish of the race here, the field has come all together. We're going to be treated then, it would seem, to another great sprint finish here in the Tour of Britain. Reynolds still not willing to give up, and don't forget, psychologically, if there's any relaxation, then he'll be away again. And Roach goes. That's why Roach wasn't working. The psychological points, let them think they've caught you and then jump them again. And Roach has done just that, the clever tactician of the world champion. But they're all onto him, and the yellow jersey is there too of Malcolm Elliott, the green jersey of McLaughlin. Now the battle between the two greats, the red rose versus the white rose, because they come from opposite sides of the Pennine chain. The red rose is Joey McLaughlin wearing the green jersey. The white rose is Malcolm Elliott in the leader's yellow jersey. 20 seconds is all that separates them in this year's Tour of Britain. Remember too, and let's not forget it, that McLaughlin is the defending champion of this race, which he won, and John Clay's gone down. A touch of wheels and John Clay has been dumped on the side of the road there. So goodness knows what happened. Clay's been challenging every day in these sprint finishes. He won't today. The whole field then coming together for the big sprint around the tight bend here now. And on the outside looks to me like Sean Yates taking it wide. He's picked up Malcolm Elliott. Yates works so selflessly for Malcolm Elliott. That's Yates in the middle. Elliott's on the outside. McLaughlin here in green. Whoa, they almost touched on that bend. And again. And McLaughlin now straightens out from the corner, going for home here. Elliott's got his wheels. McLaughlin comes clear. This is going to be good for Joey. Joey McLaughlin coming clear. Elliott on the inside and is not too pleased with whatever happened there. And McLaughlin's throwing his arms up. This is a victory for him and Liverpool, even though he's only finished second. But you have to say that sprint was questionable.
Joey, what a finish there into second place.
Fantastic. Just so pleased because of all the crowd and everything. I just didn't want to disappoint them.
One man you did disappoint was Malcolm Elliott. Now, what was going on? Can you tell us?
It was just into the last corner. Just a bit of, the usual when it comes to the last 200 metres. Nothing else really.
Malcolm's hand shot out. Did he actually touch you, do you know?
I don't know. I mean, it's just go for the line at the last 200 metres.
Do you think you were in the clear?
Yeah. All the way up the hill, yeah.
So where does this leave you now? Tomorrow?
See what happens. There's not much else you can say.
Joey, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yesterday, I wasn't too peeved about it. It was a bit rough down the finish there, and there were all sorts of problems. But today, there were enough witnesses to what happened in that sprint. It wasn't just in the finish straight. It was around the last corner. Maybe it didn't have a camera there to see. But it was pretty rough riding. Now I was actually squeezed right into the gutter and had to brake and back off, and then come back at him again. And I was coming left and then right, and I would have come. I would have come back and was coming back at him, but when there's cameramen, photographers all over the road, in the corner of the road, in the edge of the road, I'm trying to come past, and of course it was coming across as well. I mean, it's no big deal. It's second or third. The difference between second or third, but it's the time that could be critical later on.
You actually touched them there when you're coming in.
In the last corner, yeah, my handlebars. He came along the top of me and cut into the apex of the corner, and actually hit my handlebars. My front wheel touched his chainstay, and at that speed, I was this far from the barriers. So to back off and come at him again, as you saw, and then with 50 metres to go, that was when I got tightened over to the right here again. So I'm not at all happy about it.
You didn't look too happy as your hand shot out at him either.
Well, I mean, that says it all, doesn't it?
Well, as you can see, the two riders coming round here, it's very difficult at this stage of the game. The riders know that the first man into the corner is the man who's got to... the first man into the corner is the man who's going to win, because it's such a short finish up here. As Joey's coming round the outside, there's an unwritten law that bike riders have that you don't make an opponent fall, but everything else is really feasible. As you can see Joey leaning over a little bit there. He doesn't probably know that it's Malcolm behind him. He's trying to get around the corner and get the best line that he can, and Elliott was surprised by the severity of the corner as he was trying to come upside Joey McLaughlin, who was taking the better line. then as they come up the finishing straight, you can see Joey's bike is all over the road here. Now, this is one of the things that he always does when he sprints. He gets every little bit of energy out of his body. As you can see him looking round to see Malcolm Elliott there, he's throwing his bike, getting every last bit of energy out of it, and really, it's the way he's always sprinted. He's done this a few times. He's just so strong that he's trying to get his bike and every little bit of energy out of him. Malcolm trying to get up there, but because of the movement that Joey's throwing his bike around as he is doing, really it's hard to say whether there really is any infringement. And I think really that Malcolm was a little bit upset that Joey had beaten him in the sprint in his hometown.
Well, there we are. Paul Sherwin's opinion, I think a very fair assessment indeed there of that sprint finish. And there you can see the applause here for Joey McLaughlin, because it has been announced that McLaughlin is in the clear now, and he takes second place, and the crowd here in Liverpool love it. There is the overall situation in the points. Malcolm Elliott leads for the green jersey, McLaughlin is second, and Kelly is third. And Malcolm Elliott here, the man who keeps the yellow jersey today but loses a couple of more seconds in the overall time because of that sprint finish. Because remember, there are bonuses for the first 4 men to finish every day. So McLaughlin keeps nibbling away every day at Malcolm Elliott's yellow jersey. He can't feel safe yet, that is for absolute certainty. And there we have Malcolm Elliott ahead of Joey McLaughlin. Sean Yates is third, Stephen Roach fourth, Wegmuller is fifth.
Joey, you look a bit happier now.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, wouldn't you be if you come home to this? Definitely.
You seemed a bit confused at the end. Did you realise you'd come in second?
Yeah, definitely, but I just wanted to please, you know, for the crowd, for cheering me all the way around.
And it's good to see a smile for the man next to you, Malcolm Elliott.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Malcolm's professional, the same as me, and he understands, you know. The last 200 metres is a battle anyway.
Nice to see the arms going around each other. They're doing different things when you come into the finish.
Well, it's just because we're riding against each other, it doesn't mean to say that we're not good friends. We've ridden a fair while, a couple of years or so together, and you know, we know what you can get away with, and you know, I think we were stretching it a bit there. But if the judges say, I'll just stick by the judge's decision.
Did you actually appeal?
I've not appealed. I've made a protest, and the judges have looked at the film, and they've made their decision, and that's it.
Well, a deep breath, because it all starts again tomorrow. Out of the hometown, Joey.
Definitely in the morning, so hope the same crowd turn out tomorrow.
And Malcolm, Team Fager will be pulling you along again?
Well, if they've got any strength left, they did so much, worked so hard today, and you know, I just hope they can keep going until Sunday.
Well, thanks very much to both of you. Both of you going out for a quiet drink now together?
No. Have a good sleep now.
Put the feet up.
Well, there you are. Happy ending in the end. Serge Demier won the stage. McLaughlin was second. Elliott was third. Kelly was fourth. Well, what a marvellous finish, and didn't Joey McLaughlin do well in his home city? Well, we owe another debt of thanks here today, because that last 20 miles of the race was in front of record crowds for this Kelloggs Tour of Britain, and the gentlemen behind me here from Merseyside Police deserve a big pat on the back, and I'm sure you'll agree. Well, tomorrow for the riders, a double day in store. In the morning, a ride to Stoke-on-Trent, a short break, and another long ride then to the city of Birmingham. This Kelloggs Tour of Britain, far from finished yet. Malcolm Elliott, watch out. Good night.